Hello and welcome. My name is Vicky Wishay, and in this episode, one of a series of 12 all about investing in property, I'm going to be talking to you about all the ways that you can lose money through property investment. In fact, let's turn it the other way around and all the ways that you can make sure that you don't lose money through property investment. And I think probably one of the biggest things, one big headline for this is if it looks too good to be true, maybe it is, check. And the other thing is, this is not about get rich quick, it's about get rich slow. And while we're on that thing of just sayings that people toss out that actually don't mean anything, that idea of you make money when you buy, which is rubbish. You absolutely do not make money when you buy. The first thing you do when you even start thinking about investing in property is start paying invoices. So you send money to your broker so that they'll get you a mortgage. You'll send money to the solicitor, they'll start looking at the contract. And maybe you're using a sourcing agent, maybe you're going to use a surveyor. And then when you actually get really close to it, you start paying the deposit, then you're paying the refurb bills, then you're paying your letting agent. It's all about money going out. So how can the sentence, you make money when you buy, be true? You only make money when you've bought well, your tenant moves in and they start paying you enough rent to make it worth your while, to cover the cost of the mortgage and to cover the overheads of running this property for let. So you make money all the way through by the decisions that you make. Not quite as sexy and short as that saying, so maybe that's why they say it that way. So in this episode, I'm going to take you through 5 key areas that you can look at, and we'll get to that in a minute. What I also like to share with you is the fact that I am on Instagram and what I do alongside each of these videos. So what you can do is listen to the podcast, you can watch it on YouTube, but you can also go over to Instagram where I do extra videos, just little 1-minute reels that add some extra context or sometimes a little story that go along with the podcast. So make sure that you follow me on Instagram so you don't miss out on anything. Right, let's get to it and start talking about, I suppose in a sense, here's another saying, when is a deal not a deal? Right, so you're thinking about investing in property and what you really want to understand is how to make money. And so one of the first things we need to be clear of all the way through this, and we're going to use the term deal or investment, when is this investment actually an opportunity? Maybe that's a good way to put it. When is this investment actually the right or best opportunity for you? So if I qualify all of those words, you are going to be investing in property. You're going to be putting your money in with the purpose of making that money work harder, obviously, so that you don't have to. Because if the money isn't going to work hard in this deal, in this investment, you may as well leave it sitting in a theoretically safe building society account and just get your 4 or 5% from the building society account. The reason that you're putting it into property is because you are looking for monthly returns, so the rent coming in on a monthly basis. And once that rent comes in, it pays the letting agent and it pays the mortgage. And you leave a little reserve in there to build up for your insurance, and the rest of that becomes profit. And that money on a monthly basis is going to accumulate in your property company and eventually be maybe reinvested if you're in the early phase of your property career or your property journey. And then eventually when you get to a point where you have accumulated enough monthly rent, it's going to start paying you a wage so that you can adjust how you work in your job or in your business. So that's what we're looking at there. When is this investment actually the best opportunity for you? So I think the first thing that you've got to look at here is before you even buy, you need to be clear that this is actually a deal. You need to understand the math. So what you might find, and I see them so many times on Facebook, people saying, oh, you can buy this property for X. It's discounted by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, £100,000, whatever they're doing to get your attention. And you're going to get all of this return, and it's probably going to be guaranteed. Do you understand the maths? I remember speaking to one woman who got in touch with me because she was obviously feeling a bit nervous. And when she showed me the deal, she didn't understand anything that she was effectively being sold by the sourcing agent. She didn't understand how much of her money this was going to take. She didn't understand what that money investment was going to give her back as a return and whether that was even a good idea. So one of the things you need to start with probably is, what is your financial strategy? Why are you looking to invest in property? And if you're clear about what you want property to do with you, that's a good start, because that starts to build the framework around which you can start to ask questions. So you're going to ask questions like, I want cash flow. Will this property give me profit on a monthly basis? If yes, good. Next question. How much money will it give me on a monthly basis? Great, I've got that answer. How do you come to those figures? Do I understand the spreadsheet? And do I believe the numbers? Is that rent that you say that I'm going to get on this property, were I to buy it, actually the rent that I might get? I was talking to a mentee the other day, and when she'd used her figures, there was a figure in there that was probably £250 more than I would have used on a monthly basis. And when I questioned it and we went back, actually the numbers that she had picked up were more inflated. For all of my clients, when I'm talking about sourcing a deal for them, I like to underestimate the rent so that I can over deliver. And then you're going to be delighted. If I say to you, you're going to get 800 a month and then you get 850, you're going to think that you've won. And I might have thought, I'll probably be able to get 850 for this, but I'm going to tell you 8 just in case something happens, because stuff happens from the moment that you decide that you're going to do an investment. Even if we've picked the house, by the time we get through, what seems to take so long these days to actually get solicitors to deal with all the contracts. And I would say it's the solicitors rather than the lenders. We get to the point where we can actually exchange contracts. That could be 2, 3, 4, even one cash deal took 6 months before we managed to complete because of the questions going backwards and forwards between the solicitors. 3 months and 6 months is a long time in the property world. It's a long time in the world generally these days, isn't it? So much can happen. So understanding the numbers, what actually makes this deal a deal for you? Now, you might not want to buy and hold. You might have cash, an extra lump of cash at the moment up front, and you might be deciding to buy outright with cash, refurb, and then remortgage. Do all of those numbers make sense to you? Do you understand how they're going to work? And if you are going to buy it for cash and then do it up, is the purchase price plus the cost of the refurbishment actually still at or under the ceiling mark of that street? Because the thing is, you're unlikely to break the ceiling if all you're doing is a coat of paint. Surveyors these days are going to want evidence that you have truly added value to a property. So being clear about all of those numbers. And quite frankly, this sort of questioning of the numbers in a deal to make sure that they fit with what you want from it. So I want monthly cash flow. I understand how we've come to that rent number. I understand what we're estimating the mortgage to cost. And I know that at the moment, that's a good number, but I also know that it would work if when I remortgage, the numbers go up. I know that I've got plenty of cash flow down the bottom. I understand all of that. That is a good tick. That is one way that you can avoid losing tens of thousands of pounds while investing in property. And then the next one is to actually check these facts. Can these facts be proven? Can these facts be trusted? So when you get a repair budget or you get a refurbishment budget, is it a quote or is it a guess? Is it a guess by the person telling you what works need doing, or is it a quote? So, for example, when I work with my clients, I'll start off with, I'm having a guess. I've seen the property and I'm guessing what works need done from what I can see. And I am guessing at the price of those because if I don't put some numbers in my spreadsheet, I can't work out whether it's worth it or not. Remember, the purchase price plus any works that you do have to still be below the ceiling price, the most expensive house on the street, or the average house on the street, should I say. But then I want to qualify that by getting a builder in to do that quote for me so that I know precisely what it is that we are looking to pay out on this property and agree those works so that those facts can then be trusted. And the same thing with the rent is speaking to the letting agent and then qualifying that underestimate that I would put in and actually getting the facts of the actual estimate for the rent in the spreadsheet and making sure that all of those figures can be trusted. A lot of the time, I will again see deals and they are designed to catch your attention because deal makers will, whatever way they do it, they will sort of, let's say, scrape the internet and they will come across a whole load of properties that they think can be deals. And then they will share them out in a sort of a general marketing approach going, here are 5 or 10 properties, buy one of my properties, buy one of my properties, a bit like selling in a market. And they're looking to attract someone to come in. Now, that's very definitely not the way that I work. I work very specifically one-on-one with someone, so I understand what it is that you want to achieve, and then I find the properties to meet your needs. So I'm not having to embellish the numbers. But when you see these, particularly on Facebooks or at events or maybe courses, or you get on a newsletter, you need to be clear that you can trust the facts. Trust the facts in terms of the numbers. But one other example I had, and I spoke about flats at length last week, so I'm not going to labor this too much, but basically, they were saying that this 2-bedroom property could be rented out as an HMO, house of multiple occupancy, that only got 2 bedrooms and 1 living room and 1 bathroom. So they were looking at putting 3 shared tenants in there, that it could be serviced accommodation, did the lease allow that, but also that it could be let to social housing. There's grand, what would you call them? Grand offers, grand gestures, grand claims that people are making about deals. And again, there's that bit there where you've got to make sure that the numbers are true, the facts are true, the property is as described. Do some of your own due diligence. That is another way that you can avoid losing tens of thousands of pounds through property investment. And then I've sort of laboured this point a bit, understanding the maths, but it's more complicated than that. Or is it more simple? I like the maths, so maybe it's more simple for me and maybe slightly more complicated until I've explained it to you. Just because a house is being offered to you at a discount. So let's say all the houses on the street are roughly being sold at about £120,000 if they're in an average condition. And you've got a property that's in a sort of an average condition and you're being offered it for maybe 105, maybe 110 for some reason, because that vendor is prepared to give a discount so that they can sell that property sooner rather than later, because if they waited long enough, they would eventually sell it. So just because it's being offered at a discount, and sometimes people still use this phrase below market value, there is no such thing as below market value, because as soon as you sell something, that then sets the new level of the market value. So at a discount, right? Just because something is being sold at a discount doesn't mean that the deal or the investment will actually give you a return on your investment. And I use this figure a lot, ROI, return on investment. And the reason for that is that return on investment means if I was to put £10,000 into a property or £10,000 into a building society, how can I compare Two completely different things, like for like. And the one way that you can do that is to understand, and it's an investment term, what your cash is doing, what you're going to earn from the cash investment. So it's very easy with a building society. You're going to put £10,000 in an account, and that account, for example, is going to give you 5% interest over the year. Brilliant. £10,000 is going to get you 5% interest, and you can work that out. Now, what you need to think about is, how can I work that out for property? So return on investment says, what is your annual net cash flow? So the rent's going to come in, the letting agent's going to go out, the mortgage is going to go out, and then you're going to multiply that number by 12, and that's going to be your annual net cash flow. And you're going to divide that by the amount of money that you have to put into the investment in order to get that return. So what is the return on the investment that you are going to put in? And so you add up all the cash that you've put into it. So you've got a deposit, you've got solicitors, surveys, brokers, sourcing fees if it's that, insurance, repairs, stamp duty. What else have I missed out? I'm sure I've missed out. Maybe licensing in the area, all sorts of other costs that are going to go in, and they're going to form a lump at the bottom. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the annual cash flow at the top, and you're going to divide it by the lump of cash that you have had to put in. That will return a percentage figure, and then you can compare like for like. Now, most of the time, you should be looking for something that's going to give you a greater net return than sitting in a building society. Why? Because the risk invested in property, you could get a void, you could get some unexpected repairs, there could be a leak in the roof, the boiler might fail, there could be these additional costs that you cannot predict. And if we looked over a 3 to 5 year period, which is what your mortgage will be, you can't predict everything over 3 to 5 years. So you need to have that margin of safety. If your money in a property is just going to get you 4 or 5%, and your building society would get you 4 or 5%, there's more risk in the investment. And so you'd really have to consider whether that risk was worth it for you. Have you only got this one lump of money, and therefore you really need to be careful with it? And so maybe putting it into some sort of guaranteed building society, you know, a high street building society with that government-backed £85,000 protection is possibly more safe for you. But that's down to your risk tolerance. It's about your personal finance. It's about how quickly you can replace your savings. It's about never using all of your savings on a deal. If you had £50,000, for example, and a deal would take £50,000, that to me would be risky. I'd want to make sure that you'd always got some cash in reserve, because we can have done everything right. We can service the boiler, and still in January, it might decide to fail, even though it was serviced when you bought it in September or August. So really understanding the maths and what they mean to you, not being swayed by the fact that apparently you're getting a discount on something, is another way that you can protect yourself and maybe avoid losing tens of thousands of pounds. So another reason, a fourth reason, if you like, is now you've decided that you want to buy. What else do you need to check? So what other risks could there be here? So you've been offered a property, you've checked all the maths, you've checked all the facts, you've checked that it's fitting with your personal financial strategy, and you've also checked that you've understood that this is a good deal for you, a good investment for you. What can affect that from this decision point? And one of those things can be timelines. How long will it take to rent this property? And is there a cost to you, for example, like paying the mortgage? And have you factored that into your budget? So make the maths nice and say that your mortgage is £400 and that it's going to take 3 months before we can get a tenant in place for various reasons, doesn't really matter why, but you're going to have to pay £400 a month for 3 months. That's another 1,200. Does that make a difference to your return on investment? Does that make a difference to your budget? Is that something that you can afford, that you have budgeted for? And while we're talking about budgets, there's the refurb and the repairs. And that difference between, is it a budget or is it actually a quote with a time scale? And if there are major works going on in a property, so let's say you're buying a property and whether it was empty when you originally decided to buy it, or whether it had homeowners that are moving out, now because it is empty at completion, you're going to do some work on it. And whether that's redecoration or whether that's changing the kitchen or the bathroom or doing a rewire or maybe completely gutting a property, if the maths works and you've checked that it's not going to exceed the ceiling price of the street, then you need to understand how long that's going to take. Because again, if the mortgage is £400 a month, you're going to be paying those £400 throughout. And so you just need to understand that. And then, of course, when you actually get to the point where you are going to put a tenant in situ, this sort of really moves on one more to management. And of course, those timelines are a way that you can protect your investment and save yourself tens of thousands of pounds. But if we move on to management, how are you going to ensure that you get a good tenant? How are you going to ensure that the property is well managed? And I know over the years, I've been doing this, as I say, for 20 years, the number of times I meet people that self-manage. And the issue for me around self-management is, have you also been self-educating at a level that is comparable to a letting agent? You might have 5 properties, 10 properties, 20 properties, and you're self-managing and you think that it is worth it because you are saving 10% on your rent roll. But if you are not fully educated to a level that a letting agent who is managing 300 or 500 properties a month would educate themselves, if you haven't bought in either system software or set up some sort of a system to support you, you could be getting things wrong. So let's break those down one at a time. Getting the right tenant in. Have you done all the proper checks on the tenant, their right to rent, and all of that sort of stuff? And I'll go into that a bit more next week, because I'm actually going to talk to you about how important your tenant is as your client. What about, have you got the systems in place or the knowledge in place to make sure that you are creating a legal tenancy? Do you know about the Right to Rent Act? Do you know what prescribed paperwork is? Have you gone through a compliance checklist? And what about the changes that are coming down the line with the Renters' Rights Bill that is coming? Are you able to adapt and make sure that your tenancies are legal? Because that is guaranteed to cost you seriously tens of thousands of pounds, as much as £30,000 for getting that contract wrong. So what you really want to be doing is using a letting agent. And again, have you fact checked that this letting agent has the systems in place to create, first, a legal tenancy, and second, to provide quality ongoing management, not just collecting the rent, but responding to repairs. Again, swift response to a repair could actually save you tens of thousands of pounds. Dealing with a boiler or a plumbing issue or a drip could literally save you tens of thousands of pounds. And yes, all right, you're going to go, well, it doesn't matter because I've got insurance. But you know, as soon as you claim on your insurance, that your insurance premium is going to go up. So you need to go through all of these things. Why are you investing? Is this deal actually a deal for you? And have you checked all your facts? Do you understand the maths? Do you understand the timelines involved? And have you allowed a budget for everything from the refurbishment to the period that it'll take you to get a tenant? And how are you going to ensure that the right tenant goes in on the right tenancy and is managed in the right way throughout the process? So this idea that you make money when you buy, you can see that there are so many points along the way that if you are not educated, that you can trip up. Your opportunity to lose money or make money through an error just happens all the way through this process. And not just from the minute you decide to buy to the point where you complete, not just from when you complete to when you get the tenant in, but from the minute that the tenant, well, from the minute you decide, all the way through to the minute the tenant moves in and beyond. For as long as you own that property, there will be points where the wrong decision will cost you money. How and when and where you buy this investment is absolutely key for you being successful. Now, one of the first things that I do want to say to you here, or first, maybe last things that I want to say to you here, is that we have a community called the Wealthy Life Community, and that is all around helping you acquire the right mindset, helping you understand the finances from a personal level and from a property investment level. There is an inner circle where we're a bit more property focused and a bit more looking to take your business and your investing opportunities up a level, but you are welcome to join the outer circle for free. And it will be my gift to you. You'll be able to see the links in this podcast. And contained in there are so many resources, from the workbooks that help you with your mindset, the spreadsheets that help you with the maths, right the way through to access to my courses. And one of the courses in there at the moment is called How to Be a Successful Property Investor, and it has got hours and hours of video broken up into bite-sized pieces, giving information, giving you exercises so that you can take the knowledge and apply it to yourself. And it is all there for you in the community. So do join the community. I hope that in this podcast, I have been able to put some whoosh into your thinking around property investment, about when is a deal not a deal, to know when to walk away. That is important. Don't just assume that you make money the minute that you make a decision to invest in property. You don't. There are trip hazards, sinkholes, and every other sort of obstacle in your way, but they are all, nearly all, pre-known. I just qualify that in case there are a few out there that are about to trip us up, but they are mostly known and they are mostly manageable if you have the right education and support. So that's the point here. Get the right education or get the right support, and then property investment can give you that wealthy life that you're looking for. Tune in for next week, where I'm going to be speaking to you about tenants in a lot more detail. Thank you very much for listening. So in this episode, I hope that I have been able to give you some tips. And if you go back over this and you start listing them out, you'll see that there are lots of points throughout the journey from making a decision to invest in property through to completing on the property, out the other side, refurbishing, getting your tenant, and then managing beyond, where you can make a mistake. And if you're aware of those points, I think I referred to them as, traps, pitfalls, obstacles along that journey. You can be aware of them and you can plan for them. You can make sure that you are clear on the maths, to make sure that you are working someone that supports you and isn't maybe just there to make money for their business, but they're there to help you make money through your investments. And that includes your letting agent, your builders, the insurance team, the broker, and the solicitors, although they're a little world on their own, the solicitors. But all of your team should be there. They should all be educated about these pitfalls, and they should be all working towards to minimize the risk that comes with investing in property, to minimize the chances that you might lose money rather than make money by investing. So as always, please do join the community. There is a link in the show notes for this. And also check out the course, the How to Be Successful in a Successful Property Investor, that's contained within the community. If you've got any questions, book a call. You know how to do that by now, and I would be delighted to chat through your plans with you. So until next week, this is Vicky O'Shea signing off on A Wealthy Life. and have a wonderful week, and I'll speak to you again soon.